Hey guys, welcome to your lesson on finding area of irregular figures. So these first two figures come from the circle, and since the first example we have is half of a circle, we're going to take the area of a circle, which we know that formula is area equals pi r squared, and since it's half of a circle, we're just going to divide by 2. So the first thing that we have to figure out is what is the radius. The radius, since it says 14 centimeters is the diameter, then the radius is going to equal 7 centimeters because the radius is half of your diameter. Now when you plug that information in, you're going to have pi times 7 squared over 2. Now you could type this all into a regular calculator, or you can do parts of it by hand. It's totally up to you. So if you were to do it by hand, you would square 7, so you'd get 49 pi over 2. Now if you don't have a calculator that has a pi button, you can just use that pi is 3.14. And if you want to be a little bit more specific, you can go 159. And if you type this in, and we're going to round to the nearest tenth, it doesn't say that in our notes, but on your quiz this week, I'll ask you to round to the nearest tenth, so we might as well get that practice in now. And when we do that, we get that the area is going to equal, and I'm going to do these squiggly equal sign to show that I'm rounding. And it's going to be 76 point, now it's 9.7, and if I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, that means that the 9 has to go up, which in this scenario would cause everything to go up, so that's going to be an answer of, I'm going to put it over here, 77.0, and the units are always squared when you're dealing with area, so square centimeters. And you always put the square at the end after your units, okay? And I guess what I should have done is use that squiggly sign again, so area is roughly equal to 77.0 square centimeters. Now for number 2 is an example of a quarter of a circle. So just like in that first one, we know that the area formula of a circle is pi r squared, and since this is a quarter of a circle, we're going to divide by 4. So this one tells us that the radius r is 6 centimeters, so we are going to replace the r with 6. And if we type this all into the calculator, pi times 6 squared over 4, we should get that the area is going to equal 28. Now I'm going to show you two digits out so that we are all good at rounding and understand how to round. This is the tenths place. You look to the number after it. If that number is 5 or higher, you round up. If it's less than 5, you stay at that number. So since 7 is greater than 5, we're going to round up, and we're going to say that our area is 28.3, and the units are centimeters, so square centimeters. And we'll bubble in our answer to show that that's the final amount. Okay, question 3 and question 4 are very similar to question 1 and 2. So what I'd like you to do is to pause the video now, and when you unpause it, you'll see the answer, and hopefully your answer matches mine. So go ahead and pause the video and try to do questions 3 and 4 on your own now for your practice. Okay, hopefully you ended up with, for question 3, the area being 9.8 square meters, and for question 4, the area being roughly 19.6 square meters. Square centimeters, sorry. Now make sure that you include the units in your final answer, and make sure that your final answer always has the square attached to the units, because all area is always squared. Now we're going to move on to question 5. Now, question 5 is a little different. Question 5 has 2 different shapes in it, so I like to label them with numbers just so it's easier for me to reference later. So we have shape 1 and shape 2. Now, the first shape that we have is a half circle. So that formula is pi r squared, the formula for circle, divided by 2. And the other shape that we have is a rectangle, which is just simply your length times your width, or base times height. Whatever letters you really want to use, it doesn't matter. Now, to find the area of the first shape, we have to figure out the radius. Currently, the 14 millimeters, that represents the diameter. So the radius should be 7. So we have pi times 7 squared all over 2. And that would turn into 49 pi divided by 2, which would end up with, and we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so we end up with 76.97. Now, to round to the nearest tenth here, we look past the 9 to the hundredth spot, the 7. It's greater than 5, so we have to round up. The 9 is already at capacity, so that's actually going to force this to turn into 77.0 square millimeters. So that's the area of the first shape. We can box it in so we don't lose track of it, because we're going to need it in a second. And to find the area of the second shape, we have a length of 14 millimeters, a width of 10 millimeters. When we multiply those two numbers together, we end up with the area of 140 square millimeters. Now, the total area will be the combination of these two things. So if we add these two areas together, we're going to end up with the total area will equal area 1 plus area 2, and that is going to be 217 square millimeters. So this is our final answer for the total area of shape number 5. Okay, now I'm going to skip questions 6 and 7, and you can try that for homework and then check your answers tomorrow to see how you did. And we're going to just skip to question 8, because with question 8 it's a little different, and it's asking you to find the area of the shaded region only. So, because we have two shapes here again, I'm going to give them numbers. So I'm going to call the circle shape 1, and maybe I shouldn't write over that 4 centimeters. And then I'm going to call the rectangle shape 2. Now, the total area is going to equal, so I'll just write A total. So area of the total, or shaded, maybe I should say. So shaded area is going to equal the area of the second shape, so A2 minus the area of the first shape, the shape that is not shaded, A1. So if we figure out what the second area is first, let's do that. So we've got the second area is a rectangle, so formula is length times width, or base times height, whatever you want to use, same thing. And our dimensions here are 18 by 12 centimeters. So if we multiply those two numbers together, we are going to end up with 216 square centimeters. Box that in. It's not our final answer, but it's a start. Now we have to find the area of the first shape, the shape that is not shaded, the circle. And we know that the formula of a circle is pi r squared. And we don't have to divide it by anything this time because it's a full circle. We know that the radius of this circle is 4, so we have pi times 4 squared, so 16 times pi, which would give us a rounded answer of 50.3 if I round to the nearest tenth square centimeters. We'll box that in. And now when we subtract these values, 216 minus 50.3 is going to give us an area of 165.7 square centimeters. So our shaded area is going to be 165.7 square centimeters. Okay, and that's going to conclude our notes for today. If you have any questions, reach out with my email or Schoology, and hopefully this all makes sense.